What's going on? What's going on, people? It is Community Beacon. We are here. It's Friday. It's a little bit after five. Five after five. We wanted to start on five on the dot. We wanted to start on the dot, but here we go. We're making it happen right now. Even even with the makeshift, the makeshift audio button. I'm Mike Seville. I'm here, your real estate guy here in Northern Palm Beach County. Appreciate
Mike Seville. Mike Seville.
I want the brother to do it. What the special effects when we introduce him.
We got it for you, brother. Just for you,
the
man.
the Biz Marquee,
Oh my gosh,
the
man. I took
deal.
the boys back the other day. Yesterday, I took them down memory lane right there at the station. I'm talking about we started to hit all the old stuff,
Oh
Slick Rick,
wow,
Ruler, Biz Marquee, the Humpty Dance is just, oh man, come on. We went back down memory lane and we just, some of those guys never even heard of this stuff. I'm just like
were
Breaking
they're
Bad.
too old? They're because of the age difference, or just weren't on that in that culture at the time.
Both. For a couple of them, there was a little bit of both. Yeah, that's for sure. There was a little bit of both. It wasn't in their culture, and then some of them, they were just a little too young.
Mhm.
One guy though, when I got to all of the ones that had something to deal with the lady, he seemed to know all of those. Like the Humpty Dance. Oh yeah, he knew that one.
That
He
was
knew
like
that.
that was like the fun time of rap. Like
Yeah, hip
it was
hop.
yeah, hip hop. It was like a fun time. You had the parents just don't understand,
I
and
went to Fresh Prince. Yes.
yeah, so yeah, you had the parents just don't understand. You had everybody was just seemed like it was like a house party, right? It goes back to that kid and play type era, and then
Oh, I didn't. I
co-
didn't take him to the kid and play, man. I should have did that. Little crisscross.
yeah, so it was that fun having time, and then we got into gangster rap. Then we kind of went back to the fun loving time in Atlanta in the 2000s for a little bit. There was like a lot of snapping your fingers and doing these dance steps and so on and so forth. And I would tell you what era we are in now, but I don't know if it'll be well received by the people. Um,
Oh man.
it's Joel with the Tenacity Foundation on the other side.
There he
Yeah,
is. There
it's
he is.
Joe. He and Carl, my brother from another mother. Let's get into it, right? It's an
Let's get into it.
awesome time to get into our new lecture. What is this? A lecture in a series? Conversation in a series. I don't even want to call it a lecture because I definitely want you all to join in and engage and talk about, respond to some of the things that we're talking about here. We're going to get into it's really the leadership series. But our first one is the vision and integrity, the heart of a true leader, the heart of true leadership, leading with a purpose, especially as we go into this times of, new president, totally new administration. I think this is like the NFL draft kind of people tuning in regards to this administration. Like people are just waiting on these different announcements. They're tuned in. They all have something to say. We got the AG Matt Gates. You got Tulsi Gabbard coming in. I think she's National Intelligence Officer, if I'm not mistaken. You got Elon Musk and what's the guy's name? Vivek Ramaze. I'm butchering it, Vivek. So if you catch it, blame it on my mind and not my heart. Who's now the Department of Government Efficiency, which is going to be very, very interesting because what we know is that the government is not known for being efficient in any way, shape, or form. I don't think it ever has. I remember working at the city and they say, we're not here to save the people money. We're here to perform a service for the people. And sometimes it can be done out of any means. But I
And,
mean,
and we're,
without going,
and we're talking about multi-millionaires stepping up in this plate. Bill, Ramaswamy,
a
I'm not
billionaire,
sure. This
close to a
guy is
billion.
worth nearly $1 billion.
Yeah,
Like we're talking about people that are showing up that are
you're on mute.
not even,
Look, Timmy's excited.
issues of needing governmental assistance at all. They don't need anything. They can fund their own self.
So absolutely, look at Elon Musk is closing upon $300 billion net worth. So, so this is it's going to be interesting. One thing that someone did mention, and I think I would say I'm intrigued by Elon. His story is very interesting. How he goes about running his business is interesting. There was actually something that just came out recently, a video, and maybe it resurfaced. I'm not sure if it had came out before. This is my first time seeing it. When he walked into Tesla after being away for some time, and this is in the earlier years, 2006, 2007, and he was there when they were just spending money like crazy. Like he walked in, he was like, "Why do we have so many of these cars? These spec cars. There were like 30 on the floor." He's like, 30 spec cars on the floor. Then he had an entire sit down with with the people that were in charge, his executives, and they were saying, so that was when he really had to grab the reins, and he said, "Listen, we need to be profitable in the next 6 months." I think they were at the time they were going through a burn rate of between 10 and 12 million dollars a month or some crazy number. And he's like, we need to bring this down to about a zero and or profitability within 6 to 8 months. And now here we are with Tesla, which is, a whole power grid conversation. You got Starlink happening and going up every other day. They're shooting satellites into the sky. But that's the new administration. So I wanted just to touch on that.
Hey, this is not just the new administration, but we got to think about this, right? This is Donald the Trump's second time in office, and we all know second time in office, you do whatever you want to do. You do whatever you want to do. You're not looking for another vote to go back into office. You show up in with the gangbusters and you do what you got to do. And so it's kind of crazy. Donald has already been in there. The
President
Donald
Trump,
has already been in there the
President
first
Trump.
time. Yeah, he's been in there. He knows what it's like. He knows
Yeah.
nobody. He knows nobody likes him. They don't listen. I don't know if this is something that people don't understand out there in the real world, but nobody likes Donald Trump. They don't like him on the left side. They don't like him on the right side. The only people that like Donald Trump is the people. That's it. The politicians, they're not liking him because he's coming in there like gangbusters. He's bringing his own money and he doesn't need the governmental money at all. He's not looking for, $400,000 or whatever it is that they pay a president. He's not concerned about that. And check this out, Mike. This guy stepped in the office and then went on blast with his own fragrance. I was
Did
like,
he?
Donald Trump got his own cologne. Get the Trump. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh. This guy, businessman, like this time around, you're not going to catch him slipping. He's going to make $1 billion in the White House. Guarantee. This go around.
Essentially, when you're talking about the White House and the different president, people who come into president, it's our form of royalty in the democracy. You're right. We're still talking about the Kennedys. You're still definitely talking about the Bushes. You're still talking about the Clintons. You're still talking. We're still. I guess the Reagan doesn't really get that much talking. At this point, but he's still known, and I'm sure if you say to someone that I'm related to a Reagan, it means something. So I think the play for the White House is absolutely, for most people, is really not about the money, the 250 to 400,000 that they make coming in as president. But what you do see is when they leave, the millions of dollars that they do end up getting in regards to there's the fragrance. In regards to the
Fight, fight, fight. Fragrance
yeah.
limited edition, doing by President Trump. Oh man, come on, let's get some of this. Mike, when you going to sport it? Let's go. Let's go. Let's get two
Well,
bottles. Let's spray it on it. Let's spray it on ourselves and let's go out there and throw our fists in the air, right?
yeah, I had no idea there was a cologne out for him. But yeah, so they come out of office and they're making these millions, and it's really a power play. So essentially, our and this is just not Trump within himself, but look what happened to Jared Kushner, and I think his side of the family ended up, and Kushner is the one who was married to Ivan, the daughter is Ivanka. So
Oh,
Kushner, Jared Kushner ended up, his family's net worth went up to, it actually surpassed Trump for the first time ever. I think they're worth now 2 point something billion dollars. So definitely it's going to be interesting as it unfolds, and I'm actually excited about it at this point. I think I think we're about to, like you mentioned, brother, it's the second term. He's not necessarily looking for votes. We can look at JD Vance and see how he, how he steps up, because essentially there will be like who comes in after him kind of deal. So it'll be interesting as we go along. But let's talk about it in regards to leadership, bro, because I know you wanted to jump into that specifically on the heels of this landslide election.
landslide election, right? Yeah. I mean, let's talk about being the clarity of being a leader, right? I mean, Donald Trump, he steps into office. If it seems as if he's coming in and he wants to talk about the things that he's talking about, and we already see that he's like moving in a certain direction. I want to see if he's actually going to be, if the clarity that he presented and his discussions are actually going to happen. I mean, when you start talking about taking away taxes on tips, people like that idea. They like that idea. But what is this going to mean for the economy? How does that work? When we get ready to get out there. All right, so now waiters and waitresses no longer are being taxed on their tips. Does that mean that the amount of money that they get paid per hour decreases? Does it increase? Like, what exactly does that mean? What is the balancing scale? I mean, you go to some other countries and, they don't even tip. It's like that's disrespectful if you do tips because they get paid plenty of money to actually wait on people. So we're different in that, granted, that's for sure. But then you got other things like no taxes on Social Security, and that's a big one. I think that's legit. Honestly, I thought about that, Mike. I thought about that, and I'm like, no taxes on Social Security. Why are we taxing Social Security? Hasn't that individual worked enough, been taxed enough? Why are we taxing Social Security in the first place? Shouldn't be doing that. So it's just like, clear message, right? Delivering a clear message as a leader. The vision of a leader and of leadership has got to paint a clear picture, and the desired future state has to guide and inspire people. And in this case, it's got to inspire America, Americans. Is Donald Trump able to actually grab people from the left and the right and in between and bring them together, or will there be division? I I just happened to bring up this conversation a few days ago, talking with a brother, and he went slap off. I mean, slap off. Like there's words that I don't have the power to beat. So there's there's no telling you guys.
So what conversation? What was the conversation? Was the conversation about leadership, or was it about specifically Donald Trump and leadership?
So it was specifically about Donald Trump winning the
Okay,
election. That's it. But it had a lot to deal with leadership. And so the whole premises of this conversation was there were certain things that happened to this specific individual where he got wrapped up in some things, and when he got wrapped up in them, he paid the full penalty, the full price. And Donald Trump got wrapped up in some criminal mischief, supposedly. And it's
allegedly.
like, Kate, say that again.
They said allegedly,
Allegedly.
but he was. I think he did get the 32 felony charges, if I'm not mistaken. Like, so it's not allegedly. He was found supposedly guilty. Is that I you? I'll look
That,
it up.
I mean, that's where we are, right?
Okay.
This is where we are. Let's get close. Let's get close. We gotta get close. We gotta get closer. All right. So now I can see the brow of your face now because I got to get into this thing. But it's like so. you got you got you got a man
I'm
like this
guilty.
that I'm speaking with, and when I'm talking with him, he's like, I mean, he went straight down the race card. I'm telling you, Mike, he went straight down the race card.
So talk to me. What do you mean by the race? What did he? What was he
All right,
saying?
so the first word that came out his mouth was crackers, and I'm like,
So
ooh.
he's okay.
I
So that's
mean,
what he said. Okay.
he went straight down the race card, and he said, "You want to call me racist? I am racist." I'm like, "Whoa, man! Okay, all right. Let me just listen to what you
I'm
got to
for-
say." And I'm like, he's like, "If he can get away with all this stuff, and I had to serve my time." How you
Okay.
gonna let this man get in here and just erase all that he's done? I mean, and so now we're talking about leadership. He's talking about how are you going to be a leader, and I still see you as a criminal.
Mm,
And I think that this is a great point to bring in when we start talking about leadership. Your identity carries what you bring of who you are and who you were, it shows up at the table. And so if what you were is not what you are, you need to be able to prove it, or you need to be able to change the narrative. I mean, what are you thinking about this?
that's interesting because that was one of the thoughts in my mind. Leading up this morning as we were having this conversation. Let's look at some other leaders. Let's look at Martin Luther King. That
There you
that
go.
name has come up.
I felt that name coming out of you.
You if you know
Exactly where
Martin.
you're going with this.
Yeah, well, if Martin's name is coming up, you'll probably know whose name comes up next. But if we're to go off of this, and I want people. I like when we bring our whole minds, let's bring a fresh mind to the conversation, and that's going to be tough because it was a lot of political gang banging going on in the last couple of months, and I don't want y'all to gang bang on me because I want to actually have the conversation. So we'll bring up Martin Luther King. Here's a guy who, if we were to look back on, and say that he was one of the most prolific leaders in the civil rights movement. And then what we're talking about is we go to his actual character. His
Mm.
character, when we put a magnifying glass to that, we're going to see that there's going to be spots and flaws within his character. The next person that a lot of people would say is Malcolm X, which I actually think Elijah Muhammad is the true leader of that. I think Malcolm X was more of the mouthpiece for it, just based on the fruit that came from it. It was
Mm.
Elijah Muhammad. But then we can go to Elijah Muhammad and or Malcolm X and look at the flaws that they had. Look where Malcolm X came from. Look where he actually got his knowledge at when he came to knowing him of himself. So I think beyond just these labels that were putting on them, he was actually charged with those 30, I think it was 32 or 34 counts, which were felonies in the state of New York. Um, I think a leader has to have more so than what other people think about them. And this essentially is the truth of the matter because we're looking at the results of it, the fruit of it, because he was elected president of the United States. Not It was by a landslide, both popular votes and by the electoral college.
That means a
Um,
lot. That means a lot. I
yeah,
mean,
is
I
a
mean, especially you're winning the popular vote. It tells you a whole lot about the country you live in,
right.
right?
I mean, it's democracy.
It is democracy.
And so to win both, where that's usually not the case, especially in regards to Republicans, because Republicans normally get the electoral votes, they don't necessarily get the population, um, the popular vote. Donald Trump, excuse me, has a strong sense of self, and
Yeah.
it carries across, just like all those other people that I named. Martin Luther King had a strong sense of self that even his family wasn't necessarily behind him not being around and not being there for the kids. A lot of people are saying that they missed out on their father, as his children talk about. Didn't really have money, didn't really die with a lot of money to leave for his kids. They left mostly with the legacy of him, because they were, I think the one son was, who I think he ended up passing away, was attempting to sell his Bible recently for funds. um so it's like, but these people have a strong sense of self and where they're going, and it really doesn't matter what lot of people are say. A lot of people say. Now we're sitting here, we're throwing stones at. We could rather sit here and throw stones at these people, but it as far as being a leader, this is one of the things you have to do is you have to be able to have that strong sense of self and be determined. And so I in regards to the brother, I feel, or whoever it was, I'm assuming it was a brother that you had the conversation with. um this is it's not fair.
Mm.
I had to do this, and but we still have to look at some of the things that he did when he was in office the first time. He did pardon a lot of brothers. Harry O came home, and this is a big time drug dealer on the West Coast, was responsible for the death row. He pardoned the young lady Angela Stanton. This was young and got bills passed. This was a young lady who had felonies and was handcuffed to a what is it, a bed set to get the bed while she was giving birth. Some other notable people. You got Kodak Black, who was locked away in South Carolina. He pardoned him as well. He also pardoned Jared Kushner's father. Let's talk. We can talk about that after he served his time, but he pardoned him as well. So now he has his rights back. So he wasn't a part of it, but that was and just to digress, just to go off just a little bit, was that um we didn't ask for anything. You know what I mean? Like we there were no demands coming from certain demographics, So whether it's, but we're sitting here and throwing stones, but we didn't demand anything from the Democratic Party. We didn't demand anything from the Republican Party. Once again, we was out here just politically gang banging, and and here we are where we are. Go ahead, bro.
I mean, there you have it. This is the way America works, though, isn't it? I mean, as far as it goes from the level of the social level of it, is that all of us gather together. There's still there's few places where you talk about what you believe in, right? And in those arenas, you have to stand up for whatever that is. And the sad part about it is that a lot of times when you hear people standing up for it, if you don't know what's going on, you have no idea if they're just pulling the sheet over your head. I mean,
Yeah,
they're all opinions, all of them. They're all opinions. Nobody knows what I've gone through until you've walked a mile in my shoes and you made the decisions that I've made. You only know what I give to you. So there's a lot to be said about that. And I definitely hear you on that. I mean, when you started off with Martin Luther King Jr., I said, "Good God Almighty, come on, brother! Don't start right there. If you're gonna start anywhere, start somewhere else." You know, ha, not my man, right? But here we are, and here's the other part about it. I mean, it's like we talk about Donald Trump, but what is Kamala bringing to the table? The whole Joe Biden. What is the deal with the dude, right? I mean, is he got a name, Sleepy Joe, for a reason, and this is not to crash on our president or anything like that, but it's just like, okay, does this guy have dementia? Is this really what we're dealing with? Well, how come you didn't stand up and say anything? You should have taken the office early, you know. And so it's about integrity, which is actually the second thing that I wanted to get into. It's like integrity, you know. Sometimes when you're looking at things, we're looking at it and we're devising what we believe in and who we believe in, and there's a certain level of integrity. Now, granted, if I start thinking about some old school Donald Trump and I start thinking about the way he used to play black folks in the apartments and things like that, and it's like, okay, was there integrity there? You know, and the way that his language is, what type of integrity are we talking about? Well, hold on. Oh man,
well, you're saying integrity, brother, and
I'm about to get there too.
okay, yeah, go ahead. Let me go ahead.
Because integrity is not really it's not based off of exactly what you say, but it's about the honesty and about being you, no matter who's in the room, right? I mean, so if if you are what you are and you expose what you are, I don't know. I think that that's still part of
That sounds
integrity
like
right
integrity to me. I think integrity, that's where I think that's where and then we're saying, because a lot of people say he's not diplomatic like, right? Wonder if there was any one thing that most people can agree with, whether you align with him or not, is that he doesn't hold his tongue. And one of the things that people talk about, especially in his first 4 years, was like, why do you have to talk to everybody? Like, you're the president. Why are you responding to this negativity? And, and by name and by face, and he's calling people out specifically. Like why do that? But this is the Donald Trump that everyone has come to know, and he hasn't changed. Integrity is not, and when we talk about supposedly what happened in him being a landlord, which is interesting because I can go, I'm a landlord myself, so I can go down. We can have that conversation as well. But there was a bunch of things he did right in the community. There was a bunch that Judge Joe talks about the business loans he handed out, and then ripped up the checks when the people had to come, black people had to come, black men had to come pay him back. It's what he did for Michael Jackson when he got into a situation. It's what Mike Tyson. Well, shout out to Mike who's fighting tonight,
Oh, come
Logan.
on now. Come on. I hope that, listen, we will be off air before this happens because we will be
Yeah.
sitting back. I don't know what you're doing at your house, Mike, but we're having Taco
Oh
Tuesday on
man,
Friday. So we're going to be
Netflix.
breaking bad up in here. My daughter's coming, and we
That's
got
awesome.
family coming by. We're going to, man, Breaking Bad right here on the opposite side of this camera stand. We're going to see Mike, let's go, baby. Let's
Yeah.
go. Mike Tyson. Shout out to Mike
Hey,
Tyson.
and this is like a real ageist thing. You know what I mean? Like we hear about racism, we hear about all these other isms. This is an ageism thing because it's definitely the old folks versus the young folks. The young folks is like Mike Tyson ain't that bad, and we're like, wait a minute, like this is Iron Mike Tyson. We were,
Yeah,
people
he
was
gonna knock
tuned
Jake
in.
Paul out.
We were,
God, get out of here, Jake Paul. Get
and
out of here.
my son is like, you think that? I'm like, this is one of the top five heavyweights ever.
Ever.
Definitely an infamy. We're talking about infamy and just being famous. He's probably one. Behind maybe two, Muhammad Ali, and then Mike Tyson, as far as the a heavyweight is concerned. So that
Yeah,
being,
people are saying eat his head, tear his
yeah,
head off.
I
Don't
think,
not just the ear, take the whole head off, like
yeah,
Venom.
yeah. That's what I want. I wouldn't accept anything less. Especially Jake Paul got paid an extra 20 million for this fight. So I think, show him show him the real Iron Mike Tyson even at age 50. But I digress. These are some of the people, and if we go back, prior to him announcing running for the first time, I think his name was mentioned in rap songs 400 times as far as being the status that they wanted to reach. You see him in pictures with all the celebrities. I remember Russell Simmons, that was a great friend of his until he decided to run for the Democratic machine. And I always say in regards to this is that, especially in our community, because we vote Democratic at such a high rate. I think 92% for women. He got the highest with men this year, which was 80%. The year before it was 95% women, 92% men. The time he ran in 2020 and lost. He was at one point a friend to the black community. You saw him with Jesse Jackson. He donated a lot to Jesse Jackson's campaign when he ran in 88. I think it was 88 Jesse ran. 84, 88. So in the Rainbow Color, he was a friend of Rainbow Coalition. He's probably the only president that has shown up at the not the NAACP. What's the award that they give out? They're supposed to give out like scholarships. The Negro College Fund, United Negro College, UNCF. He's the only Republican president that showed up to these different things, but he's touted as a racist. Uh there's
84. Jesse Jackson was 84.
84. There's racists that vote for the brother, for the man. I'm not discounting that, but I would imagine if a racist is going to vote, that's who they will vote for. They're going to vote more than likely conservative Republican because of what in their minds they think it stands for. Um, but here we are. But let's get to this integrity. And part of the integrity we wanted to cover was the communication that they had. Donald versus Kamala. And what we noticed,
Actually, 84 and 88, brother.
88
Both
both.
of them.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. I was a lad, but I remember you are somebody. Um, so we have the communication that he had, and what the thing that really differentiated himself and Kamala during this Kamala, if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, forgive me once again. It wasn't necessarily, we heard a lot of double speak, politician talk, and to hear someone come and just say things at the level that he did, and he's not an idiot. I really want you all to know that now. If you get a chance, go watch some of the videos of him on the campaign trail, and it's insane. The him conversating with his staff, so on and so forth, and what exactly it is that he does. So we can't just look at him as, oh, he was the apprentice person, which is essentially entertainment, or some of the speeches and how he speaks. He's a very intelligent person. So don't take any, we can't take that away from him. And his messaging was just so clear, and it was spot on, and it was easy to remember. Like, what was his slogan? Right? 90 Anybody who tuned in for half a second would know it was make America great
Make
again.
America great again. MAGA.
Right, MAGA. MAGA. You became a MAGA person. What was Kamala's slogan?
There you have it.
If you know, type it in the, because she had one. You could type it in the comments if you remember what her, at any point in time, if you remember what her slogan was. So in regards to his communication, he was speaking to the people. Not only was he speaking to the people, but he was listening to the people. He was trying to figure out what were our top items that people are upset about. For most, it ended up being the economy. He wasn't telling us what we should be mad about, which for whatever reason it seemed like that's what was the Democrats were doing. It almost was like a shame and guilt tour from the Democratic side, and I'm sure a lot of them would have to accept that at this point. It was a shame and guilt tour. You know, if you're this, then you should vote this way. It was based largely on identity politics, and then we bring out the celebrities to tell you what it is that you need to be thinking and how you need to be voting versus, in my household, some of the things that I shouldn't be needing to pay attention to, I'm starting to pay attention to.
Mm.
I have a thought process where most people should not be thinking about how much eggs cost. You just go in there and you buy them. Most people shouldn't be thinking about how much milk costs. You just go in there and you buy your milk. Most
This is a
people shouldn't be.
mindset too, man.
Yeah,
It's a mindset. You know, j- just speaking on that piece right there, I'm gonna tell you something. I pulled up to a gas station and the fuel was $5.49. I'm telling you, I did think about that for a minute. I was like, what on earth is $2 more than down the street? I
right,
did think about that.
right,
But I definitely get what you're saying because on average, like, I'll sit there and I'll talk with my wife, and my wife will be like, hey, I'm going over to Sam's because she's saving like 20, 30 cents. And I'm like, I'm just gonna go across the street to the racetrack because I'm saving like 20 minutes, right? My roundabout time is I drive out across the street and I go over there in 3 minutes, I'm pumping fuel, and in 7 minutes, I'm back at the house. Meanwhile, she's driving, she has to get on I-95 and go down a couple exits. And I'm just like, I don't know. Was that worth it to me? I'm not sure. I guess so. You know what I mean? So I'm with you on that point of view.
yeah, absolutely. So he spoke, and well, he listened to the people. It seems, and then he spoke to the people. What did they? And he repeated it. A lot of the things he said, and that was, I think Kamala did a good job at that as well, because you remember a lot of, she had her certain slogans and sayings. The unburdened slogan was a lot that she repeated that quite
We're
often.
not going back.
Yeah, yeah, we're not going back.
When we
So
fight, we win.
yeah, okay, yeah, I think she did a pretty good job of that, but she didn't do anything that, because what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like it was left to be for whatever. I guess make America great again is vague as well, right?
It is vague, and especially it depends on who hears it. I mean, no matter no matter what slogan you have, the people that hear the slogan, they've got to resonate with it, right? I mean, you can come up with any slogan you want, but the people that you're speaking with have to be able to say, that slogan fits me. It stirs something up inside of me that makes me want to get out and do something, right? And I think that makes a huge difference, and in the pulse of the election, in the pulse of where we're going, but even more so in what type of leader you are. Because when it comes down to being a leader, you have to be distinguished among men or among people for that matter. But you have to be distinguished. Somebody has to be able to look in a crowd and say, there he is, there she is. That's the person that we're following. Because if a leader doesn't have a following, what are they a leader of? Themselves, right? You're like a leader of nothing. And so a slogan helps to make things clear. When the slogan changes, like with the incumbent president Harris, right? When she was changing her slogan, which is part of the reason why many people may not be able to figure out what was her slogan. It's almost like the message wasn't clear enough. Like you don't it's the message. Your vision should not be based off of what is the message that is going to capture the people. Sometimes a slogan even comes up in the heat of the moment when you feel like you're driving in the right direction. And it's like when we drive, we get there, and it's like, okay, when we drive, we get there, and everybody understands as long as we're in the driver's seat, we're going to get where we're going. And then you just ride on that. You just keep on. And now it's like, I'm not giving you this slogan because I'm trying to curtail something, or I'm trying to attract somebody. It's because I've got belief wrapped up in this. And so I'm not selling you a slogan that you can get behind and pump your hands in the air and you can get a shirt. But what I'm telling you about is my belief system. My belief and my vision is that when I'm in the driver's seat, I get where I'm going. And I believe it so much that I'm telling you, if you get in the vehicle with me, you also are going to get where you want to be. And let me tell you what that looks like. And so now we have a clear vision. I think that Trump delivered that so well that people went out and they started making their own shirts. It's like, I'm not even waiting for you to make a shirt. I'm going to make a shirt myself and I'm going to support that. And it's hard. It's hard when people start to create their own wave, if you will. They create their own energy. They build their own momentum backing what you have delivered. That is something that Martin Luther King Jr. was great at doing. That's something that Obama was great at doing in his speech. That's something that Malcolm X was amazing at doing. You know, just to draw people in with the energy and the emphasis behind the words. And then when he had the ear of the people, to go ahead and deliver the speech that liberated them, at least on an emotional level, right? And I think that's pretty important, you know, because when it all comes down to it, you have to build that type of trust system with the people that you desire to lead. People have to want to be around you. They have to want to be a part of you. I think that at some point in time, unfortunately, Harris wasn't able to draw. Well, I mean, it's obvious with the polls, she wasn't able to draw that many people. And it was almost kind of like she started to draw just the specific people, like she was drawing the woman vote and the black vote. And people were just like, I'm going to vote for her because I'm black, or I'm going to vote for him because I'm a woman or a black woman or whatever. And it's like you have to expand that because well, in this case, it became very obvious that that wasn't enough. So, I mean, it takes some self reflection as being a leader. And I think that these are core concepts, in developing a leader in general, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, once again, with the political gangbanging. What was interesting, and I just had a conversation with this with Dean Jackson. Well, he brought it up. I was listening to him. He was talking about a movie which I have to watch. In regards to Cambridge Analytica. So this was the company that came up back in 2016 that Trump hired that basically spoke about everyone's demographics, and I think they had like 400 different points of which they we're selling our data out here as far as individuals were concerned. So they had 400 different points on, millions and millions of people. This is back, 2016 Facebook, before Facebook tightened up a lot of the stuff. Social media, I'm sure, did the same. However, there's still groups that do this market data and research. And
The
what they
Great
found,
Hack? Is that what you're referring to?
I don't know what the movie was called. It could be, but it was based on the company. What did I say? Cambridge
Cambridge
Analytica.
Analytica, the
Yeah.
scandal.
So when you look at what they did, just had this conversation. What the Republican Party did, what Trump essentially did, his team did, was that they found that there's certain people who were going to vote this way either way. Like there was no changing. There's no changing. What they were staunch identity politics. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. Then they had ones that what they called, I believe, was the influencer bulls. Got it written here somewhere. Um,
Oh yes, I definitely remember this. There's a part of this movie where they talked about
the
uh,
persuadables. That's what they
yeah,
call them. And so
yeah,
we're going to market strictly to this, to this group called the persuadables. Like what, and that's who we're going to deal with. Whereas, and we saw it this time, and this is crazy because she spent, over $1 billion. She's,
over a billion.
$20 million in debt. 10 million. You suppose, allegedly to Beyonce, 5 million, so on and so forth. And once again, you said they were speaking to these people, and they were going to vote that way anyways. I guess it was more so
Right.
about thinking if we can get more of them out, because if you even look at the numbers, 15 million less people voted Democrat this year than in 2020. So she wasn't able to get those people out of their seats. She wasn't able to your point, brother, to move people, get enough people in the car, or have other people get in the car, bring other people with them into the car, in regards to where it was she was headed. Um, I wanted to talk about a point that you made as well, where you said, as far as I think a special leader. I think you have special leaders who are become leaders of others. I think 95, my numbers. I'm a 95.5 guy. I think the majority of people are looking for a leader. And what they and they're but they're not those special leaders that are going to persuade people to get or influence people to do things that they're doing. Um, but
That's
you
a
sh-
big word.
but you should be a leader of oneself. And it really, because it starts with yourself. Because what is a leader? A leader has to have some kind of philosophy. A leader has to have certain principles that they follow. Now, if you get other people and you've been blessed and you have the favor to allow, where people you're able to influence, and people do want to follow you, that's one thing. But just to be a leader of oneself, I think is very important, because just to have those things to come out with, what is my philosophy that I'm dealing with? That way, because my vision should be based on my philosophy and my principles. These things, there's certain things that should never be changing. And then, you go on and so forth. I think we're missing that. I think what happens, especially in our community, is that we want to become, and this is why there's churches almost like on every corner. It's interesting. It's the same way in Jamaica as well, because everyone wants to be a leader, wants to be a pastor, wants to be so on and so forth. And no one wants to take care of their own household. No one wants to be a leader of themselves. They don't want to be a leader of the house. They don't want to be a leader of, then go to a neighbor, then a community, and so on and so forth. We automatically jump out into the community, and we're leading. But when we go home, we can't lead what's going on. We don't have, because it's not based on anything. And then what ends up happening with the people who just go out, now you're just catering to the people, right? Like now is like, what do the people want? because you don't have these principles. You don't have this foundation. It's more so about what the people want than based on sound principles and sound doctrine. So I think a lead. So become a leader within yourself. And I'm not saying, you know, you come up with your own stuff. Like there's enough things out here for you to kind of go and look about. You know, we talk about the Bible often. There's a lot of different books. You can go look in the Quran if that's your choice or your preference. You can go look in the Torah if that's your preference as well. But actually adhere to these principles and these foundations and look at leaders there. The leader is not supposed to be going back to the initial point. I'm not saying you're supposed to be flawless. We haven't met one flawless leader in any of these books besides uh, Christ that I know of. Right? I'm not sure if the Prophet Muhammad is because I haven't done the research into that. But most of these people who became leaders of men had flaws. You know, you look at Paul. Paul had his flaws. If we're judging Paul based on his past and what goes on to the future, we're going to find fault in it. But becoming a leader of yourself, um, you may not be the chosen one. You may not be given the
Woo.
authority. Like you may
Mm,
not like who like you may not necessarily begin. So you gotta and this being said, right? Like this is happening. Now you're not, and we spoke about this last time. Now you're not falling for everything because it's based on this. And here it is. You can get behind a leader who does have these characteristics and these qualities. Right?
right.
Like now I can get behind this person who has this characteristic and these qualities, and I can be a humble, you know, I
Follower.
yeah, I can play my part because we can't. It's too many cowboys and not enough Indians when it comes to these leaders. And yeah, so that's my thought process. That was one thing that I wanted to speak about.
But
Um,
here, you mentioned something, brother, and I want to throw this out there because you started talking about the biblical reference. First Timothy 3, 4, and 5. One that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? I just want to put that out there. This was the excellent point that you were making. You know, rule your own house well. Like Daddy McCullough, one of my mentors, been passed a long time ago, but he would say, he would say, because some people rose up against him when it was time for him to take office. And he said, "You think that I'm going to change when all of these people are benefiting from my leadership just for one or two?" He said, "No." He said, if you feel that way, go out there and do your own thing. And if you can't, then fall in line. He said, a good follower may someday become a good leader because there's qualities that have to be developed. You don't, just because you know something does not make you a leader. Just because you're smart does not make you a leader. There are certain qualities that must come into play. You have to learn how to become compassionate. You have to learn how to become a thinker, a quick thinker on your feet. You have to learn how to do things skill wise. And then you have to learn how to discern the skills of them that are around you. You have to learn when others should be acting and you should be directing. You have to learn when you should be and I don't mean acting as in playwriting, I mean as in doing the do. You have to know when you should be doing it and others should be saying words and even guiding you. You have to be humble enough to receive instruction and to know when it's time for me to go unto wiser people than I am to find greater answers than I can bring to the table. And you have to be able to speak this with integrity, with honesty, with compassion, with commitment, with drive. You have to be able to move mountains within inside of your own self. And I don't mean inside your own house. I mean the house, this temple of your own, to be able to move your own mind when you say, I'm not going to do it, you get up and do it because you know it must be done.
mm,
So All of these things are great composers in the symphony of development inside of a leader. Now, when you get these things, it happens. A leader is born. And it doesn't matter which side of the table they're on, which side of the democracy they're on, whether they're, and I'm going to put it out there, whether they're good or they're bad, it doesn't matter. A leader has been born and they will lead and guide somebody down a pathway. So the rest of those that are followers, it's all about resignation. Does it resonate with me? Can I feel it? Is it palpable? Is it something that I'm willing to give of myself or give up of what I have to be in alignment with this? And I'm going to tell you something. As a man, men do two things. Men become leaders and lead others, or they become really good followers of strong leaders. Now, there's always somebody else out there. So I can't, I'm like Mike. That's my 45, that's my 47.5, 47.5 with a remaining balance of 5% somewhere out there that they just want to float around and do what they do. But men they're quite different creatures, you know. We want to be led by somebody who's strong, someone who shows us what it should look like to be a man. Or we want to be the man to show everybody else what it looks like. That's my take.
That's interesting. So you say men either want to lead or be led by someone strong.
Yes. They want to not it does, and I don't mean strong as in, muscles and things like that. I'm sure you understand that.
Yeah.
But they want to be led by somebody that they feel like is like the better side of themselves. Like if I was, woo, that guy got it right there. All right, come on, man, let's go. What you want to do? Pound for pound, I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to roll with you. And this happens at a very young age. At a very young age, we don't even recognize it. We don't even recognize it, but we join friendships and alliances with people, and we try each other to see which one's going to go further, which one's going to do whatever it is. And as long as we stay in alignment, we pick the leader of the pack and we do it without anything. And I was telling my wife about this just the other day. I said, see, here's the difference. There's a difference between men and women because a woman will go and she'll strip another woman down of what she's got going on. If you want to be the queen, whatever,
It's
nah, let me show you
competition.
how
Yeah.
little of a queen you are.
Yeah.
But a man said, like, if Mike was doing something, I could go up to Mike. I'd be like, listen, Mike, let me tell you something, man. If you go this route and you do it this way, if Mike respects me, he'll say, all right, I'm gonna do it. And if Mike comes to me and he's like, listen, brother, I heard the way you was talking, that ain't it. And he hits me with that knowledge, I'm be like, all right, that's it. And he becomes my leader, even if it's just for a moment, because men are like that. Now, if a man feels like he's disrespected, then he's going to show you a different side. And he's going to lead that conversation and he's going to make sure you understand who you step into.
So
Men
what
are
do
like,
so what do we say to the men that are kind of just in the wind right now? They don't have a leader. I guess a person, and there's multiple people out here, right? Because there's a man who does not necessarily have someone that they look up to. Because I think I would think that there's a certain kind of man that adheres to what you're saying in regards to men that are open to being led, because sometimes you run into men and they don't want to give up a certain position even if the other person could, you know, have more merit than they do. It's shown, but I've seen that happen quite often. I call them the old guys Forgive me, old guys. I'm gonna talk about you for a little bit.
Them old guys, you
I
don't call them
I
OGs, huh?
they're old guys.
But I mean, that's the classification, Mike. They fall right in line with men that want to be the leader of somebody else.
Right.
You know, they are leading their own mind. They think they got it right, and they believe that you should follow them, and they should not be following you. That it's two types.
Yeah.
You're either
Yeah.
one or the other. It doesn't mean that you will be successful in it in your
That's
endeavor.
there we go. There we go. And you to speak in regards to the women's side of things, I've observed that as well. In regards to the competition amongst them is not about. I was telling my son earlier today. I said, see, when men are in competition with each other, we're doing it to get better. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is here. I'm in whatever. If this competition starts to come out, I want to do it so I can get better. Like that. That's what I'm competing for, so that I can get better. And the other person, if he's competitive, he's going to try to be like it. But it's raising us. It's sharpening us. We're going and we still come back together and we can have that conversation as opposed to so we're building the biggest building to have the biggest building, right? Whereas other people are tearing other buildings down instead of building their building up. I cannot,
Mm,
on the opposite end of it. So so that and you don't and so I think that was a separation of it. Um I think we have one more point on this election subject, and that had, or excuse me, this series, and it was lessons in resilience and adaptability from the election journey. A leader being resilient and adaptable. Um, let's talk about let's talk about the winner.
okay, let's go.
The brother beat 32 felony cases in the midst of
Two
climbing
bullets.
climbing back to office. Two bullets in the midst of one that came eerily close at one point in time, going
Uh,
back to office. There was a lot of, and I think both of you, they're both going to get the slander. It is what it is. Although I think one was worse than the others, um, with mainstream media. And I started calling him the Teflon Don. I said he had a lot of things that just didn't stick. It was a lot of things that just didn't stick, and he came back. And who would have thought, especially in the last 4 years, that he would have been here to where he was? I mean, he still had to go through the entire process. He was fighting these cases, and these weren't cheap cases. He was fighting cases in New York. He was fighting cases in Georgia. Um, he was fighting. He got. I don't know anyone who had close calls, with being shot at. Some people that they might give it up then, and then to come out to be a victor. I almost said that, because he was supposed to actually be sentenced. I think the 26th or the 28th of this month, and I said this man is fighting for his freedom, so he can't stop. You hear talks about, I don't know, Joe Rogan said, man, the guy's a machine. Patrick Bet David, who we both interviewed him, both said that he just never stopped. He was doing these 3-hour interviews. He went on a bunch of these different podcasts. He wasn't really paying for promotion. I forget what he spent. I know on staff it was only 10 million, but he spent a fraction of what the other side spent. Raised a lot of money though. So, we're talking about being resilient. We're talking about being adaptable. He took everything that they were throwing at him, and he was navigating these different systems. Now we had a young lady, Kamala, who came in, and I mean, give her to her credit, to get to where she was. That's not an easy feat. I don't care how you do it. And we speak about her being, or people speak about her being a chameleon. I think in Washington, you have to kind of be somewhat of a chameleon. She is a politician at the end of the day. So that's just a part of her personality. But even being a chameleon, it still takes much to get to rise to where she was. She was the vice president of the United States, or is until January, and she did make a run at the presidency. She was selected by all of her counterparts to become to run for the nomination. So we'll give her that. As far as the resilience, I don't know. What do you think, brother?
Man, as far as resilience, you know, I think that is difficult to say this, right? Because we would have to wait 4 years to see if she goes for a go again, right? We would have to wait 4 years because that's what Donald Trump has done. He kept his head in the game when some people thought that he wouldn't, and many people thought that he would, and then he rose back up, in the final stretch. And like you said, he was fighting all these other court battles and things like that. And I think that victory goes to he who fights to the end. Um, but there comes a time inside of a presidential race, where the votes have been counted, the electoral candidate is in, and you know it is what it is at that point in time. You lost that battle. There comes a time where the battle has been closed, and so the resiliency of, of Harris now, from that standpoint, it's hard to tell. Let's see what she does.
See what she does.
I mean, let's see how she works. Let's see how she works with the Don. Let's see if she continues to work with them. I mean, that this is her opportunity. Like, this is something that I hope she sees, and I hope people that are around her sees. It's like, okay, just because you didn't get picked for the faved basketball team does not mean you take your ball home and and leave the court. Like, they're still playing, and that's an old saying. It's like, when you don't get picked on the basketball team, you recognize that it's your ball and you take your ball home. Nobody plays, but it can't be like that. When you're a leader, and you have to stay there even when you're not the chosen to, like you said earlier, you're not the chosen one. Like Matrix, everybody can't be Neo. You know, everybody can't be Neo. Somebody got to be Morpheus. Somebody got to be Trinity. They were leaders in their own right, but they weren't the leader. Everybody couldn't be Jesus. Somebody had to be Peter. Somebody had to be Andrew. Somebody had to be James. Somebody had to be Matthew. Somebody had to be somebody else, because again, one of my mentors, he would always say, he'd tell men, preach the gospel. He'd say, you got four gospels to preach from, and they're all good. And then my father would teach me, and he told me, he said, each one of those men had brought a different message, but they all talked about the same life. And it was because somebody could reach somebody, and another body could reach somebody else. And so you may not be sitting in that seat, but you still have to deliver the message. She should still go out there and push for her causes. And if she's pushing, going back to clarity and integrity, if she is still pushing for her causes,
Mhm.
whether she wins or loses, because she can't carry as strong of an influence from the position that she's in, or the position that she may go into, whatever that position may be. Her influence will not be as strong. But do you still carry that influence? Do you still set the hearts ablaze? Do you still cause people to want to do something greater? And I'll give it to Donald Trump. He did that for 4 years. I mean, he had people that still wanted to follow him, people that were ready to push Biden. If they could have, they would have pushed him out of the way, you know, literally moved him off the stage. And it's just like, that is true resiliency, to go through the low of the lows and to rise up. And again, for all those of y'all that are listening, this is not about if Trump is better than Harris. This is about what makes a good leader. What makes a good leader? And I think that makes a good leader, a person that is willing to bet their life their income, their everything on what they believe and to follow it to the very end. And I know
Yeah,
that that could go two different ways, bro. It could. It could go two different ways. It could be for good, it could be for bad. But you cannot deny that that person has put their all into being who they are.
yeah. I mean, there will be a movie.
Gosh, man. And what we will
Yeah,
find out then.
yeah. There definitely will be a movie. This entire thing, just the resilience and the entire thing. It's worth really diving into, talking about in the history of books. Coming out of COVID, right? I mean, 2020 to 2024. I just told someone was like doing a 6 month bid. It went by that fast, but it just
Mm,
seemed that tough. It was
mm.
just a different. It was just a different time, a different space. I think that's it. I think I don't know. What we got anything for closing?
Yeah, man. Y'all come back out, show back up on the next one. I don't know. My computer was a little. What is that you got? You are you launching this out on X now too?
Yeah, listen. Can I? Elon Musk is the is the unofficial prime minister of this thing. So
Oh
if
my
I were
gosh! Oh my
if I
gosh! Did
were
they
you,
make him the official Doge?
I start to figure a lot of this stuff out. And here's another thing: it's a whole different world on X. I'm still working with it and figuring it out, but it's a whole different world on X. Different from what you'll see on Facebook, definitely different what you see on Instagram. There's a lot of conversation. There's some crazy people on X. let, let that be warned. Like it's a when we talk about free speech, it's some speech going on. So
There's some
um,
speech going on.
yeah. So I said, Elon's the unofficial prime minister. Let me see what X is looking like, and I appreciate everyone because I see a couple people on here from X. So appreciate you all. We do this each and every Friday. So if you all bear with us, matter follow me, you'll see it pop up when we do go live. So appreciate you guys for checking in for that. And if you and I guess since there's some people from X, I don't know who you are. Go and check out the Tenacity Foundation's stuff. We got a bunch of videos on there. The brother has a show that he does called "It Starts with Me," so check that out too. The Tenacity Foundation, that's over on YouTube. So check out the Tenacity Foundation, and you'll see his beautiful face posing for pictures.
Let's go.
Yeah, posing on there. So appreciate you all. We'll finish it. We'll get back into this leadership conversation next week.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Peace.